Okay, so we have here Father Carlos Martins on Capturing Christianity with Cameron Bertuzzi. They're watching a video from the genetically modified skeptic, where he brings on his own exorcism expert to look at these things from a rationalistic point of view, or naturalistic point of view, whatever. Excuse me. So, the priest ended up saying something, though, that I thought was interesting, and I had to fact-check it. So I'm just going to play it, and then I'm going to fact-check him.
What's happening is fake, based merely on the video alone. Right? Look, the American Psychiatric Association publishes the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which the current edition was just released. It was either late last year or earlier this year. And it's the most widely accepted psychological resource that's used by clinicians, researchers, and so forth for the classification of mental disorders and just mental states. And it's often been called the psychology Bible. So the DSM regards possession states as fact that lack full explanation and are subject to cultural interpretation. Mm-hmm. So the DSM presumes that such possession states are speculative, dissociative, or psychotic in nature, rather than rooted in spiritual evil. However, it doesn't go any further than positing that. In other words, it doesn't even address or mention Christianity's success in liberating persons from possession states over the past 2 millennia, where oftentimes science has left the person in no further state of healing. So here's a quote. This is from the current edition. This is from page 332. Possession typically manifests behaviorally as if a spirit, supernatural being, or outside person has taken control, with the individual speaking or acting in a distinct different manner. For example, an individual's behavior may give the appearance that her identity has been replaced by a ghost. But here's the kicker. The DSM admits that such a state of possession is not attributable to the physiological effects of a substance like a drug or to another medical condition. So if it's not induced by a drug and it's not induced by an illness, by a pathology, then what induces it? And here, the American Psychological Association just goes quiet.
Okay. So sorry if that was a bit long, but I just wanted to get all of what he said in there. He does go on to say it's far from them admitting spiritual evil or whatever, but that's not really what's important. I played the important part. So I'm going to go ahead, and so what I did was, I'm not a psychiatrist, I don't have a copy of the DSM, but libraries do, and so you can see that I went and I found the DSM-5 text revision. Near as far as I can tell, that is the most recent edition of the DSM. It came out in 2022, not 2023 or 2024. You can see up here, 332. Dissociative identity disorders. Dissociative disorders, sorry. This is dissociative identity disorder. This whole section is on dissociative identity disorder. So if you're going to take a look here, and I want you to see if you can either remember, do you remember what the priest said? Because you might notice that this looks kind of different than what he says. The words are there, but he leaves some out, so I'm just going to read it. Possession form identities in dissociative identity disorder typically manifest behaviorally as if a spirit, which is in quotation marks, supernatural being, or outside person has taken control, with the individual speaking or acting in a distinctly different manner. For example, an individual's behavior may give the appearance that her identity has been replaced by the ghost, which is in quotation marks, of a girl who died by suicide in the same community years before, speaking and acting as though she were still alive. The identities that arise during possession form dissociative identity disorder present recurrently, are unwanted and involuntary, and cause clinically significant distress or impairment, criterion C. However, The majority of possession states that occur around the world are usually part of a broadly accepted cultural or religious practice and therefore do not meet criteria for dissociative identity disorder, criterion D. So there you go. You can see how much he's had to actually leave out here. He left out, the possession form identities in dissociative identity disorder, typically manifest behaviorally. He just leaves all of that part out, probably because that doesn't really help his case. If he calls it possession form identities and dissociative identity disorder, that kind of like makes it sound like they're talking about a mental condition, so he had to leave that part out, I guess. And then here, I think my favorite part, because he says, for example, an individual's behavior may give the appearance that our identity has been replaced by a ghost, as if that's any different than the examples they've already given here as a spirit, supernatural being, or outside person, is literally the exact same. Why would they then go, for example, to give a single sentence, a single word answer? Because it's not that. It doesn't end at ghost. It continues on to say of a girl who died by suicide in the community years before. So what's up with that? That seems kind of suspicious, Just taking out so much context. See, as far as I can understand, and I'm not a psychiatrist, so I'm not saying I'm right about this, but the way I read this is, what would happen in this case, maybe, is that you have like two girls. One of them tragically commits suicide, and the surviving one has problems dealing with it because you're a kid and your friend just committed suicide. Like even death in general could be hard to deal with, but the idea of somebody killing themselves would be like, even as someone your own age, like that would be so hard for a child to comprehend, wouldn't it? So they wouldn't be able to process that trauma normally, unless of course they had like a really good support group, which unfortunately lots of kids don't. So in this case, the identities that arise are caused by that trauma, because that's what they implicate in what causes dissociative identity disorder. They implicate early childhood trauma. So it seems like that's what it's saying here, that this girl acts like the ghost of a girl who died the years before as a kind of coping mechanism to deal with the fact that she couldn't deal with the fact that she had committed suicide. And then eventually it kind of compounds into itself and becomes a problem, like a disorder, a disordered way of thinking. And that's what it seems to be saying here to me. It's not saying that she's literally she hasn't literally been taken over by a ghost of a girl who died. It isn't implying that whatsoever. And so I have to go here to the first page of this section. This is 330, Dissociative Identity Disorder. You can see this is the diagnostic criteria section. And it's right here where it says the symptoms are not attributable to the physiological effects of a substance or another medical condition. So I want you to think for a minute about the implication of the word another medical condition. He said it himself in in his sentence, and he didn't pick up on it himself, I guess. But how can you have another medical condition without having one medical condition to begin with? Another one. Right? So saying another medical condition is not claiming that there's no pathology. It's very clearly implicating a pathology. Another medical condition. I'm sorry, I don't want to harp on that too much, but it's just like, basic grammar, please. So I'm just going to flip to the risk and prognostic factors section here, where it says several brain regions have been implicated in the of dissociative identity disorder, including the orbitofrontal cortex, hippocampus, parahippocampal gyrus, and amygdala. So, does that sound like they're stating that there's no pathology? No, that is not at all what they're saying. It's not even slightly what they're saying. It's just flat out wrong. So, yeah. What's up with that, Father Martins? If you ever watch this, I guess it's unlikely unless I call the title something really spicy, which I might. But yeah, I guess that's about all I have to say about this. He's wrong. and he just sits there and acts like what he's saying is the absolute truth, when it's really just his own misunderstanding that got him there. So, even if he isn't a liar, it's not much better than that, frankly.